Have you ever felt like the weight of the amount of bills and debt that you have is just overtaking you? Like, oh my God, I just can't deal with it, to the point where you start ignoring your bills, meaning you don't even open the mail anymore. You dread going to the mail. Well, I know the feeling all too well. By the way, I'm Shantae Charles. I am a wife and a mother of four children, ages 10, 9, 6, and 4. And a few years ago, my husband and I were $30,000 in debt, but we decided to get out of debt. And today we are debt free. At the time that before we decided to get out of debt, I felt like overwhelmed, like, oh my God, it's just so much. And there was a point in time where I was ignoring bills. I was like, hated going to the mail and hated opening the mail. But I came to the realization that that was not helping us at all. The bills were not going to magically disappear. And God told us to get out of debt, that He wanted us out of debt. So I sat down and I came up with a plan to get out of debt. But first, I had to have a woo-saw moment. I had to just take it all in and release and tell myself that it's going to be okay. I didn't get in debt overnight, and we're not going to get out of debt overnight. And I had to believe that it was possible to get out of debt. Now, I'm not going to say that it was completely easy to get out of debt, because it it wasn't hard once we came up with a plan, but it wasn't easy, if that makes sense. The hard part was staying focused on getting out of debt. We had to remember why we wanted to get out of debt. One of the main reasons we wanted to get out of debt, aside from God telling us that we needed to get out of debt, is that we decided that before we purchased a home to live in, that we wanted to be consumer debt free, that we didn't want to owe anybody. The only bill that we wanted to be responsible for was paying our mortgage. Now, of course, you can't avoid typical monthly bills such as your light bill, electric bill, internet, all those things. You, unless you're living off the grid or out in the middle of nowhere, roughing it, those are bills that you're never going to avoid having every month. But we wanted to be consumer debt free. So I sat down and came up with a plan to get us out of debt. Now, like I said, it wasn't easy. We did have some setbacks, because my husband's mom, she became ill. She could no longer work, and my husband was helping her financially before she came to live with us. We had to take a hard look at where we were spending our money. We cut things, extracurricular activities for our children. We had to cut a lot of things, and we were, as Dave Ramsey says, beans and rice, rice and beans at one point. But then eventually we decided, okay, we've paid our full out of our debt, and that method does not work for us. You tend to get miserable after a while when you feel like you're only going to work to pay bills. So we started incorporated some fun things back into our lives after we got our some of the bulk of our debt paid down. Once my husband's truck was paid off, we started to go on vacation again. We added our kids back into extracurricular activities, while we were still in debt, because we didn't want to feel like, okay, we only work to pay bills, work to pay bills. Yes, we want to get out of debt, but we don't want to be miserable not having a life while we're trying to get out of debt, because we didn't want to get deterred from staying on the road to getting out of debt with not having fun and saying, oh, forget the whole thing. We're trying to get out of debt. We're never going to be out of debt anyway. So let's just go on another high price vacation that we really can't afford. Let's just start to do whatever. But we didn't do that. So in order to stay focused and to not feel miserable, we started reincorporating some fun back into our life. One of the things we did, which a lot of people will say is not the correct way to get out of debt, but it worked for us. We found what worked for us. And if you're on a journey to get out of debt, you can do a lot of research. You can hear things from other people or even from me on ways to get out of debt. But you have to decide what is going to work best for you, your family, your situation, and your mental, to keep you going forward with getting out of debt. But one of the things we did is we didn't look at the highest interest rate, and we didn't do the snowball method where you pay the smallest bill first and then get that paid off, then put that amount of money towards the next bill or what have you. What we did is we paid um, the minimum on our credit cards. We paid off some small bills. I think we paid off like one or two small bills. And then I decided, okay, let's pay off this truck. My husband owed like $10,000, give or take a couple $100 on his truck. And I decided, okay, let's get this truck paid off because that was the largest debt we had. It wasn't the highest interest rate. The interest rate was relatively low compared to what we owed an interest rate on credit cards, but the car payment was like 530 to 30 something dollars, and I wanted that large lump sum of 10,000 plus dollars to be gone and to be gone as soon as possible. And I wanted to see that 530 something dollars back into our bank account every month and to be able to put that 500 and something dollars towards something else. So it wasn't what is usually recommended by the financial gurus. And listen, I'm no financial advisor. I'm just telling you what works for me and my family and how we got out of debt so that you can start on a plan and decide what works for you and your family. I'm just here to encourage you to start on the road to get out of debt. That if my husband and I, with four small children, can get out of $30,000 in debt, you can get out of debt also. It's not going to happen overnight because you didn't get in debt overnight, but you can get out of debt. But we figured out what worked best for us. And for me, to keep me going forward on the road to debt freedom, I needed to see that large debt paid off as quickly as possible, and see that $500, 530 some dollars back into our bank account to be able to put that towards something else. Some people will say, oh, well, you pay the highest interest rate off first because the interest rate is where the money is. And that's right. The higher the interest, the more money you're spending. But I did what worked for me. Paying off the highest interest rate on a $2,000 or $3,000 credit card or what have you, that didn't work for me. I needed to see that $10,000 gone, finito, adios, amigos, and that $532 back into our bank account. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't started the process of getting out of debt, or maybe you haven't even thought of getting out of debt because you feel like, oh my God, it's just so much. I can't do it. Well, first, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and release it. You can get out of debt. There is nothing impossible, especially if you ask God to help you. You can get out of debt. It can be done. So I would encourage you to stop avoiding opening your bills. Open your bills, find out exactly how much you owe, and make a list of what you owe, how much you owe, and who you owe it to, and come up with a plan. Whether it's the snowball method, the snowball method may work for you. There's nothing wrong with the snowball method if that works for you. The snowball method is where you take the smallest bill that you have and you work towards paying that off first. So you'll see some traction. Oh, I have a $500 on a credit card. Okay, I'm going to work extra hard to pay that off. You get that paid off, and then the money you would have been spending on that credit card to pay that off, you put that money towards your next smaller bill. That method may work for you. Or you may want to do the avalanche method where you pay off the debt that has the highest interest rate first. You can do that as well. Or you may want to do what I do and just don't worry about the smallest bill, don't worry about the highest interest. Just decide, okay, this is what bill I'm going to pay off first and go that route. There's no right or wrong reason. Excuse me, there's no right or wrong way of how to go about getting out of debt. As long as you get out of debt, come up with a plan that works for you and your family. Listen, you guys, it is imperative that we get out of debt and that we stay out of debt. Jobs are closing, laying off. I shouldn't say closing because a lot of companies are laying off, but they aren't closing. And they have made record profits. Sorry, I thought I heard my husband. A lot of jobs have, there are a lot of companies that are still laying off. If you watch the news, you'll see that a lot of companies are laying off people. Some companies are closing, some companies aren't closing, and they've made record profits. They're finding ways to streamline their processes and cut costs in order to put more money in the CEO's pocket, to put more money in the shareholders' pocket. So it's imperative that we get out of debt and stay out of debt so we can take the money that we're earning and put that into investments, put that into something that is going to help us generate money, generate income outside of our jobs. Having only one source of income can no longer be the way that we operate. Having one source of income, you're really living on the edge, because what happens when and if that one source of income ends? I mean, AI is taking over or will take over a lot of jobs. Some jobs will just be eliminated by artificial intelligence. It's unavoidable. We can get mad about it. We can talk about how unfair it is. It really doesn't matter how unfair it is. Yes, it may be unfair, but it really doesn't matter because it's not going to stop it from happening. But what we have to do is to be prepared. So, in the event that if our job closes, if you have a job, I don't work for anyone, I work for myself, but and that's not to sound arrogant or cocky, um but if you have a job and the job closes, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So we have to have investments, we have to have more than one source of income, and we cannot continue to remain in debt and say, oh, I spent up all our money and another payday is coming. Next Friday is payday. You're going to be sorry. You're going to be sorry. So I want to encourage you to make a plan to get out of debt. You may have a detour, you may have some bumps in the road, but continue. Sorry if you hear my husband in the background fussing at the kid. But continue on the road to debt freedom. Continue on the road to debt freedom. And while you're on the road to debt freedom, educate yourself on investments, how you can invest your money so that when you are out of debt, you can use the income that you have, the extra money that you have, to invest so that that money that you invest can make you more money. Do some research on what you can do as some side hustles to get you some extra income so that you're not dependent on just one source of income, and your side hustle the money you make from that can help you get out of debt faster, can help you get out of debt faster. And also, when and if you get additional income, you get a raise on your job, or you start a side hustle, you start making additional money, do not increase your lifestyle. Do not increase your lifestyle, at least not immediately. Use that extra money to save for an emergency fund. Use it to invest, to help you earn to help you earn some more money, whether you invest in the stock market or whatever it may be. Do not increase your lifestyle immediately. Now, I'm not saying to never increase your lifestyle, because that wouldn't make sense, but don't do it immediately. But again, I want to encourage you to start your journey to getting out of debt. Get your head out of the sand. The debt is not going away. By ignoring it is just making it worse. Open the bill, see how much you owe. Take the phone call from the creditor. See if you can work something out where they'll take a settlement. Yes, it's going to affect your credit. Your credit, if you're avoiding bills, avoiding opening your mail, your credit's probably already shot the shingles anyway, because you're avoiding the mail, opening your mail, and you don't know how much you owe. You don't know how much you're owed, and you're avoiding, which means you're not paying somebody. But don't be so worried about your credit and your credit score. Just focus on paying off the debt. You can always rebuild your credit. And you don't want to rebuild your credit to rack up more credit cards, to get another credit card, to rack up more credit card debt. You want to rebuild your credit so that if and when you do take on more debt after you get out of consumer debt, it's debt that's going to help you accumulate assets such as a mortgage on a rental property, things of that nature, buying some land, something that's going to generate you additional income, and something that is going to help you build generational wealth so that you can leave something to your children and to your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, if you don't have any children, your godchildren, so that you aren't um still, just living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. Don't worry about your credit score while you're getting out of debt, because if you're ignoring bills, your credit is probably already trash anyway. But open the bills. Just stop avoiding the phone calls. Take the phone call. See what you can work out with the creditor. A lot of times, especially if you are way past due, you have gone to collections and or going almost to out outside collections, because most companies, all companies, they have an in-house collections where their collection agency is attempting, their collections team, excuse me, is attempting to collect the debt before they send it or sell it off to a collection agency. But see what you can work out with the creditor. They may settle. Most of the time they will settle. Yes, it's going to show on your credit that you paid less than what you owe, but in a year and a half, 2 years, you can reestablish your credit. You can rebuild your credit. It can be done. And even if your credit is not bad, your credit score may take a dip, because I know mine did when we started paying off our bills. It was so weird when we started paying off our debt, because we were paying off our credit cards early or in full. Our credit score went down. It's like, well, we're not late. Why is our credit score going down? But if we had carried a balance longer, the higher our credit score would have been. I was like, this is some nonsense. This is some fraganaga bull, because they want to keep you in debt. Or if you're worried about your credit score, sometimes people will be like, well, I'm not going to pay it because my credit score. Don't worry about that. Pay them people off so that you don't have the interest. Don't pay them you don't have to pay any more interest. Pay them off. Worry about rebuilding your credit later. So again, I just wanted to encourage you to please start the process of getting out of debt. You can do it. Again, I'm Shantae Charles. I hope this has encouraged you. I hope you will stay on the road to getting out of debt. And if you have not started your journey to getting out of debt, I hope this video encourages you to get out of debt. If you're not following me, hey, give me a follow. If you catch this video on YouTube, please hit like, hit subscribe, and share it with somebody else that you may know that may need help getting out of debt. Until next time, have a good evening.